You're listening to The Wedding Whisperer with Sarah Burton of Simply Love Studio in Lexington, Kentucky. Hi, Stephanie. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
One of the things with the podcast is I really want to educate our couples on the services that we have available here in Lexington for our weddings. We've covered a lot of the traditional vendors, and I really just want to add in some of the fun vendors now and some of the things that maybe they see online, they see on Pinterest, but maybe they don't know that we have those available here in Lexington, or they don't know exactly how they work, what they cost, that kind of thing. So that's where you come into play. You are a live wedding painter.
Yes, I
If
am.
someone is listening and they are like, what in the world is a live wedding painter? What does that mean?
I basically capture in a painting or on canvas a moment, a special moment from the day. So I talk to the bride and groom ahead of time and we choose that moment, whether it be during the ceremony or the reception. And then I just paint throughout the whole day into the evening. At the end, it's a mostly finished looking piece of art that is really fun for guests and the couple to kind of see and experience, because a lot of people, they've never experienced an artist doing painting in person, and it's really fun because they can kind of see, they know, based on the day, like they're seeing it come to life of what they are experiencing.
I was reading a little bit about your bio on your website. I did not realize you had such an extensive background in art. It sounds like you have been in art your entire life, and a lot of your family is in art.
That's right. I have been creative, artistic my whole life. Growing up, that's what everyone told me I was good at. So I was like, yes, this is my thing. I'm the baby of five, so that was just what made me special, like stood out in my family. And my grandmother's an artist too, so she had a big influence on me growing up. And then I studied painting in college. That's where I learned oil painting and good fundamentals for traditional realism, and we did a lot of figure painting, so that's where I got a lot of experience doing portraits and people. But as far as a career goes, like when I graduated, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I got married right after college. I was kind of just like trying things out, ended up landing a marketing job for a construction company, and I felt that was a good fit. But at the same time, I started my side hustle of commissioned based painting. So, like, friends and family would ask me to paint their dog or a home or like a picture they took on vacation they thought was pretty. And that's just how my business started. On the side, I was working nights and weekends. I did a lot of like shows and craft markets on the weekends. And then it came to a point where it was just too much for me to do both. And I went full time in 2020. But back up to my first live wedding painting was actually the fall of 2018. I'd heard about live wedding painting. It was kind of brand new. I mean, there were some people who were doing it, but it was not well known by any means. But I had a couple of people ask me, and I was like, I don't want to do that. That is not something that I see myself doing. And then it was an acquaintance or kind of a friend of a family member who really wanted me. And I was like, okay, this seems like the best possible way to kind of ease into it to see how I do. I had done some plein air painting, which just means painting outdoors, like what you see in front of you. So I was like, okay, I can do this. I know how to do this. It's going to be more challenging. I knew it would be more challenging, but it was way worse than I even expected. I just had high expectations for myself. Like the few people that I did see online who were doing it already, they were like finishing at the end of the night. It looked somewhat nice by the end of the night. And my first one, I was just totally lost because in my mind, it was plein air painting, which you don't really use photographs. You just paint what you see. And the moments happen too fast. Like I don't have a photographic memory. I cannot do that. And so I was like, how are they doing this? And I was like, wait a second. It would be a lot easier if I took pictures and used those. It makes sense, right? So I very much learned my lesson. After that one, I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to do that again. But that was fun, right? But then people kept asking me. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to quit. I need to figure this out for myself. It's a good challenge and I just need to do it. So I kept doing it and I got a little more comfortable every time. I got my process down. I understood what I expected of myself, that I did not expect to finish it the same evening. That's just not what I do. I like to put a lot of details into the painting afterwards. So the more I did it, the more comfortable I got. And it's never easy. Even at this point, I've been doing it now for what, 7 years?
Mhm.
It is not, it's always a challenge, but now I'm just more comfortable doing it, which is good.
As someone who cannot draw anything, like I was in band in school, middle school and high school, so I never had an art class. So I cannot draw a stick figure straight. So the fact that I can like look at your paintings and know exactly what venue they're at and just the detail down to the bricks and everything is just it's unreal for me. And I've always had such an appreciation for artists, especially like local artists. I was looking around my house this morning and I was like, every single print I have in my house is from a local artist.
Oh, that's
And I
awesome.
have your print that is the black horse that has the blue number 3, like
Blue number
program number
three.
on it.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm obsessed with that. Whenever you posted that, I was like, I have to have that immediately. And it's
Thank
literally in my
you.
dining room. I see it every day. Talking
That,
about horses, you actually do some of the official Keeneland artwork for the spring and fall meets. How many of
yeah.
those have you done now?
The first one was last spring. So I did last
Okay.
spring and fall, and this year I'm doing the spring and fall again. Wedding painting is not all that I do. It's just a very small part of what I do, honestly. I do a lot more. I do a lot more equine and landscape paintings. Whenever Keeneland asked me, they had used the same artist the previous 6 years,
Mhm.
and they just
Okay.
wanted a change and they liked that I was local. They had actually found me through, they did a program called the Masters of Craft Awards, and they had reached out to me online and they said, "Hey, we think that you would be a good fit for, this thing that we're doing. Why don't you apply?" And so I did. I was a finalist in my genre. And so that meant they did like a small feature on me in the Keeneland magazine, and then they carry some of my artwork in their store, like the Keeneland shop. That was a big deal. But then whenever I went to meet with them about like the wholesale stuff, they were like, "Hey, we're just thinking about this. We love your artwork. Would you like to do the official art for the spring and fall?" And I was like, "Oh, that is like my life goal. Yes, please."
Yes.
I had honestly written that down in my planner 5 years before. I was like, this is like a big far out goal of mine that probably will never happen, but it's really fun to think about, like doing the official Keeneland artwork. And then it happened and it blew my mind. I was just so excited. And I'm like, I can't believe that happened.
Yep.
So yeah, we worked together collaboratively to come up with the concepts for each one. And then I create the original painting and then I digitize it and design the poster. And then, yeah, that's what they sell in the shop.
For one of the posters that you do for Keeneland, before we switch back to weddings, how many like hours do you put into something like that?
Oh gosh, I spent at least a month on the painting itself. I will, though, say I have a 6-month-old, so my schedule's a little whack right now. Um, I'm painting from like 8 p.m. until, 2, 3, you know, the wee hours of the morning, and then I'm up at 6, of course. So I'm just, it's a temporary thing, but yeah, I probably put, well, I mean, it had to have been probably at least 100 hours into that painting. It was a lot. The spring one this year has a lot of details in
Mhm.
the cherry blossoms, and I was way in over my head with that, but I'm really happy with the way it turned out. But it is a lot of work.
For like a wedding painting, how many hours typically go into something like that? Like even your prep before the wedding day, you said you've kind of perfected it since you started. Like your prep before, the day of, and after, like how many hours do you think typically go into each wedding?
That's a good question. So day of, I'm usually there, I would say probably six plus hours at least. Sometimes 8 maybe, depending on when I arrive, because I need to get there. I usually get there at least 2 to 3 hours before the ceremony, sometimes earlier if it's if I need to get reference photos from earlier in the day, like during the bridal portraits or first look or family photos. So in addition to that, the full day of wedding painting. Ahead of time, I'm doing a little research on the venue. And of course, I talk with the couple and then we decide, from what point of view, what moment from the day, and what's important that is included in the painting. What do I not include? What do you not want me? Do you have a specific pose that you want, or do you want me to just do a candid? All of those questions. Then afterwards, I will use all of my reference photos and refine all of the details, which takes the longest amount of time. I probably spend an average of 30 or 40 hours on each one. Um, Maybe more, especially on, it depends on the package that they book for me. I do couple only paintings, and then I do like a mid-size full scene, and then I do a really large full scene customizable with like any portraits that they want specifically included of family members. So they're
Oh,
my like three packages. Yeah.
what do you think is the most common, I guess maybe the scene that you paint from a wedding day?
It's really split between the ceremony and reception. Usually the ceremony, it would be the pronouncement or exit, and then the reception is the first dance. Well, I've got actually two ceremony. Well, that one you can't, when you're listening, you can't see what I'm pointing to, but I have two examples here. That one was End of Night Progress, and that one's a totally finished painting that are just couple only. I would say probably ceremony is the most common, but it can be anything. If it's a bridal portrait, it can be a first look, or it can be just while the photographer is taking bridal portraits during the day, I can just kind of shadow them and take my own references. If it's in front of, the venue, a certain look that they want from the venue or a backdrop, that's important. A lot of times it's the exit, the first kiss, or like if the couple does a dip kiss at the end of the aisle, which is common. And then the reception, it can be the grand entrance or the first dance. Those are the most common moments from the day that people choose.
You said you started doing weddings about 7 years ago. How have
Yeah.
you seen things in your world as far as painting change throughout those 7 years? I talk a lot about like how things have changed with planning, and last minute and stuff, but how have things changed for you? Or have they?
They have, I would say mostly personally, because I have like being in the heat of that moment of painting in front of people, that that forces some serious growth and skill and everything. It's been a big learning curve. And I mean, if you compare from my first couple of weddings to now, it's amazing how much better I've gotten. So that's really encouraging for me. So in that sense, as I've gotten better, more comfortable, my skill has improved. I've, of course, been able to charge more and be more choosy on which weddings that I pick. I also do a very limited amount now. I kind of time it a little more evenly spaced throughout the year when I choose to do weddings. And I also prioritize local because I have a family now and I don't want to be gone for full weekends at a time. I would say the pandemic, 2020, I had, of course, several canceled. I also had my daughter, my firstborn, and that was also when, everyone was on social media and it blew up. Wedding painting blew up. I think it was Maggie Smith Kuhn, who was the live painter who kind of blew up wedding painting on TikTok. She's actually a friend of mine. We're all in a Facebook group together, which is fun because that's also how we've all kind of grown together, is because we share information, tips and tricks and all kinds of things in that community. I would say she kind of started, well, originally there was an article in the New York Times. I think it was featuring Catherine Gressel, the artist, and she's been doing live painting. I think she's like the OG. She's out of New York. That kind of brought it attention to a lot of people, but then going viral on TikTok, and then Instagram with Maggie, and many others have followed. It's just become a lot more of a common thing, a lot more sought after. I've definitely benefited from that. I get so many inquiries, which is nice because then I am able to choose and be picky and even raise my prices because I only take on, 10 or less really for me a year. That's my sweet spot. That's kind of the biggest the biggest changes that I've seen is just how much more popular it is. Even though it is still, it's definitely a luxury service. There are many new artists popping up, I feel like every day, who offer that lower price point for people who just want that experience and maybe want to try out or give someone a chance who has a little less experience. And it's still really fun to include that in any wedding.
I definitely think it has become more popular, as you were saying. And I love hearing that you all have a Facebook group. That's one of the things that I have tried to really reiterate throughout the podcast is the wedding industry and kind of how close we are and how much we try to support each other. And, I'm in text messages with other wedding planners and just hearing
Hmm.
that you all communicate so much because that's really how we take care of our couples and that's how we learn and if something happens at a wedding and you hear about it and you're like, oh, this ever happens to me, I know how to handle that, those type of situations. And
Yes.
anytime when I'm meeting with a couple for the first time, no matter where they're at in the planning process, I always ask them what their top three priorities are. And literally within the last probably 6 to 8 weeks, I had my first bride say that having a live painter was one of her top three priorities. And I loved hearing that. That's the piece that along with your photography that you will have forever. Talking about pricing, let's talk a little bit about pricing. And do you remember where you actually started at price wise to kind of where you are now?
Yeah. When I first started, the first few that I did, I think the range was like 900 to 12 or 1500, which I think is was actually pretty high at the time. But I offer oil paintings, and I would say the majority of live painters use acrylics. And the difference is oil paintings, oils are a lot more expensive. They are they are more fine art, I would say. The way that you have to be skilled in the way that they work to create a painting, especially in that short period of time because they stay wet. So working with oils is a lot different than acrylics. I felt that was something that made me stand out a little bit. Since then, I would say, and it's been 7 years, which is a long time, but also not. I still feel like I have so much to learn, but my pricing has probably increased by 5 to 6 times,
Okay.
which is a lot. But I've also gotten, like I said, way more confident and skilled
Mhm.
in my work that I offer. And we do have that Facebook community and we all kind of check in about that kind of thing, like where pricing and skill level kind of meet.
Of course, me not having any art background at all, and you
Hmm.
just explaining oil paintings versus acrylic, whenever a couple is looking for a live painter, do they know to can they tell the difference when looking at the finished product, which is which, or is that an artist preference?
I don't think you can. Somebody who doesn't know would not probably care or be able to tell. It's probably more for people who care. I mean, it's probably the difference between digital and film photography, right? Because like most people
Okay.
are like, I understand that it's different and that
Hmm.
film is probably better, but looking at it as somebody who's unskilled with the difference, they wouldn't be able to tell. So,
That completely explained everything to me.
okay, good.
It just, yeah, just telling me that. Yeah. Do most of the other live painters in the area, do most of them use acrylic or are they oil based or do you know?
I think most are acrylic. I want to say artist I recently connected with, Katie Nelson. I think she does oils.
Okay.
But everyone else, there's really not a whole lot in Lexington that I know of, like painters. There's only a handful of us, and we all have vastly different styles. I want to say everyone else around here that I know of either watercolor or acrylic. But I know she also offers watercolor guest portraits. Yeah.
Talking about the guest portraits, on the wedding day, do you typically only do one big, large print?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't do I don't do multiple and I don't do guest portraits. That's just
Okay.
where I kind of cut the line. My specialty is just focusing on the one painting. The couple's portrait is priority for me to kind of get in a really good place by the end of the night and then filling in all the beautiful details afterwards. I call it like an heirloom painting that they'll keep forever. And that's something that will last well past the wedding. They're going to look at it maybe even every day if they have it hanging in their house. To me, personally, that's what's important to me. So I think that when couples connect with that, they understand my process and why I spend so much time on it afterwards, because I want you to love it for the rest of your life and not it just be
Absolutely.
something for that day that you're like, well, that was cool, while they created it, but I don't know if I want to look at it every day. I don't mean to say that, but there is a wide variety of artists, skill levels, and styles out there. So, for people who are looking to book a live painter, they need to figure out what's important to them, whether it is
Absolutely.
the experience the night of, the painting style, or the end result, having the finished painting. So what is the priority? Like all of those are important, but what is the priority?
I love that. That is literally, yes, just breaking it down like that. Talking about like being an heirloom piece, how long do oil paintings last? Forever?
Well,
Or the
we
color
have
always be there?
we have the Mona Lisa. How old is
Okay,
that?
that's true. Yeah,
It's an
and
oil
I have seen
painting.
her. So,
Though,
okay.
and acrylics have come a long way, so they do last a long time, but it just doesn't compare to oils as far as the texture and the colors and just the way that they are, the way that you have to blend them and use them on the painting is just a lot different process. So the end result is going to be different. Like I said, that's only something a nerdy artist would understand. I just love oils so much. That's what I learned on. I have tried acrylics because I know that would speed my process, but I can't do it. I don't like them.
If someone does have, whether it's an oil or acrylic or watercolor, as far as like when they put it on the wall in their house, is there anything that they should be protective about, like as far as the way the sun hits it or anything like
No,
that?
I varnish all of my paintings after they're dry before I hand them over to the couple, and that protects it from light and dust and debris. And that is a layer that can be over time, like art conservationists can remove that layer to because sometimes it'll get a little bit yellowed or worn, and then apply a new layer of varnish, so the painting underneath is completely protected.
This is just mind blowing to me. Talking about the guest portraits, we touched on that. Like you mentioned, Katie does that. And
Hmm.
it's basically where she is at the wedding and she'll have a little table set up with a little light, and people will come up to her and she just literally draws them while they stand there. And she just did
Yeah.
a TikTok or an Instagram video a couple days ago about how, she had over the years, how she had gotten so much quicker at it. And it's really cool to see the different dresses that the women have on and the color to them. You
Hmm.
really feel like you see the people, the guests on the paper, and it's really a fun favor for the guests to be able
Hmm.
to take home with them.
Yeah,
And
so if
then,
that's important to the couple, having that guest experience, if it's for the guests, I think that's a great option.
and we also have someone in town that does caricatures. I can never say that
Caricatures.
properly. Yes, we have someone in town that does that as well. So kind of the complete opposite of your guest dressed up in fancy clothes, but it's we have options for everyone if you do want to incorporate art into your wedding.
Yes.
On the wedding day, whenever you go to the venue, I know that you have worked at the apiary a lot, at
Hmm.
Carrick House, the castle. Are there any
Yep.
things that you need from the venue to provide for you, or do you take everything that you need?
I take everything that I need. They don't provide me with anything unless they offer me a chair. Then sometimes I'm like, sure, I'll use a chair every now and then. I won't sit and paint, but I might take a break and sit or put my purse on it or something. But no, I come with everything that I need. Sometimes the venue will ask me to bring a rug so that in case,
Oh, yeah.
God forbid an accident happens, it's protecting their floor. But otherwise, no, no. I come with a whole package.
How much of the painting do you actually get done during the reception? Do you typically finish it or do you put the finishing touches on after?
I don't finish at the end of the night, so the nature of my style and the way I like to work is probably a little bit slower, and I work in layers. So what I focus on, so when I get to the venue, I will start. doing the sketch in the background. Sometimes some venues require a lot of like measurements and like the perspective, and that can take a while. So I kind of sketch in the background, and then when I get my references, I will focus on the couple first. So I try to get their portraits looking really nice, or at least recognizable, and the details in their outfits, their dress, and some florals maybe. And then if they have a full scene that they want to include, or the package of including a full scene of maybe candids or even portraits of family, then I will start sketching in the composition of how they will be placed, the family or the guests in the background. I'm still amazed at like when guests are like, "Oh my gosh, is it done?" And I'm like, "No, it has a long ways to go." It's funny to me though, because some people are like, "It looks done to me," and I'm like, "That okay." Thank you, but there are many details that still have to happen. But I think um, just at least showing kind of a finished looking type portrait is the most important thing for me and for I think the couples.
I see sometimes in like photos, whether it's on like an Instagram story or even in like a gallery where the couple will come up and paint just a little bit on it. Are they
Yeah.
actually like doing anything to it, or is that kind of for a photo op? Because I would be terrified
Yeah.
to touch it.
Some do and some don't. I
Okay.
always encourage them to. I even try to put paint on their brush because sometimes they'll just take the dry brush and just go just a little bit. And I'm like, no, seriously, paint something. I had one couple who actually like initialed it at the bottom and I left that in the painting. I thought that was so sweet. But otherwise, most of them are like, you're gonna paint over this, right? And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
but please paint on it. It's really fun. They've probably never even painted with oils. So just having that experience, I think, is really fun that they know that they put a mark on their painting.
I do want to mention that in addition to doing the Keeneland paintings, you actually did Lauren Alaina's wedding painting. As someone who is a big fan of country music and has followed her for years, I saw that on
Hmm.
your Instagram and was super
Yes.
pumped for that. How did that come about?
Oh my gosh, it was so wild. This was the wildest thing that's ever happened to me. So I did a wedding at the Schermerhorn Symphony Center the year before. So her wedding was last year, 2024. So in 2023, I had done a wedding at that venue where I didn't know at the time, was planning her wedding. Um, and it was the planner. She found me through the planner. They actually reached out to me first and said, "Hey, are you available for this date? We have a client." And I was like, "Yes, actually, I'm available." I didn't know it would be for her. And I think they do that a lot of times. I think that makes sense because otherwise things could go south if it doesn't, happen. And then I was kind of just like put on hold for a while and I was like, "It's fine. No big deal." And then she reached out to me on Instagram. So she had she started following me and liked my story, which was a random, I'd posted a painting that I had just sold. It was a landscape painting. This was in December or January. I cannot remember. I think maybe January, which her wedding was February. Okay. And she said, "Oh, so beautiful." And I was like, "The Lauren Alaina just commented on my story and followed me. What is happening?" And then I looked and I saw that she was engaged, and I was like, "Okay, I'm putting this together now." She lives in Nashville. That makes sense. So then she reaches out and she says, "Hey, I really want to have you at my wedding. Can you please talk to my people and make this happen? Are you available still?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we worked it out, and sure enough, she booked me, and the whole experience was just wild, I should say. At that time, also, I had just recently found out I was pregnant, and I was very ill. It was like prime all day sickness, not just morning sickness. So the day of, I make it. I'm just trying to not think about throwing up. But I get there super early because I want to like get a good head start. She picked, of course, a large size for me to paint. I'm painting in some of the background and then I take a break and eat a little bit. And when I'm in like the break room area, I think I hear her in the hallway and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's her." And so I kind of peek out and she's out there in her dress. It's right before the ceremony. And she was like telling her people, like, "Get up in there, fix this." And they're like up her dress fixing things. And I just like peeped and like kind of giggled. And one of the planners was like, "Look, that's your wedding painter. Like that'll cheer you up." I guess she was really nervous. She like gives me this huge hug. She's like, "Oh my gosh, how do you do what you do?" And I was like, "What? How do you sing like you sing?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, I guess it is the same." So that was a really fun moment. And then after the ceremony, so I was painting her first dance. She wanted like a billion family members in this painting. So automatic like stress at a level 10. I go to the family photos of the photographer, which happens right after the ceremony, kind of. The ceremony was really delayed. By the time they're doing family photos, it's like pitch black outside. It's on the front steps of the Skirmerhorn, and it's a windy, cold day. And so I'm out there like helping the photographers with the lighting that was falling over and trying to understand who was who. I could not. I just took tons of pictures myself and I was like, I have no idea who is who. It's like the whole extended family. And so I'm just like, okay, I'll just worry about that later. I got my references. I run back in and I was like, okay, the ceremony's delayed. I'm sure the reception will still be delayed and I'll have a little time to put things together. So they do a reception reveal. The planner does with Lauren and Cam, and they do some like mock first dance poses, and I get some references of them at that time. And I'm like, okay, that'll give me a little extra time to start painting their portraits anyway. Um, my references were terrible. So they had this giant floral canopy hanging over the dance floor, and the lighting, all the shadows from like the flowers were all over their faces. The only clear references I got were when the photographer was flashing, and then they're like super blown out, you know? I'm like, oh my gosh, I just have to work with this. Like, I don't have another option.
Yeah.
I was so stressed. I start, as soon as I look at these and I notice they're terrible, the floodgates for the reception open. Like they started on time, even though the ceremony was so delayed. And so I was like, oh no, like I barely have anything on the canvas yet. I like to have like a little bit more going before guests come in and see. So I'm like furiously working and trying to get like a pose of them started. And you know, even some family members, you know, painted in there. Um, like this reception was every bit of 450 people. I feel like there was more. It was like standing room only. They didn't have any seating. They had stations for like different types of food where people could kind of just mingle and grab food and just hang out. There were couches. There was no real seating. People, you know, had been drinking during cocktail hour and they were all bumping into me. And I was like fighting off people, holding my canvas. It was wild, trying to paint. Um, and then they do their actual first dance. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can get some better references. Well, this dance floor was surrounded shoulder to shoulder, like a tight circle. I'm worming my way in, like with the videographer and photographer, trying to get anything. Ugh. And it's really not the right angle that I need because I can't get to where I need to get. It was pretty much a nightmare. But and then I was working on Lauren's portrait for the longest time. I just could not get it to look quite right because, you know, like I said, my references were terrible. And I eventually get it to a point to where it doesn't look terrible. And then it's almost the end of the night. They're coming over to see the painting, and I'm like, here's what I have done. It's really not a whole lot. I'm sorry. But they were like, oh my gosh, no, it's great. They were so sweet. They painted on the painting. It was fun. And then I like aside told her like, hey, you're gonna have to help me with the family members because I have no idea and I'm very sorry. Maybe like afterwards we can just connect. And she was like, you know what, just follow me now. I'm gonna go get changed for a different outfit. And I was like, okay, great. I followed her into her dressing room. I showed her all my pictures. She's like, okay, this person, not this person, this person. And I was like, okay, I'm taking notes, trying to figure it out. And she was like, should I include this person? We might just tell them that you didn't get a good reference of them. And I was like, fine with me. And that was a lot of fun because usually I don't really spend a lot of time with the bride. And for whatever reason, at Lauren Alaina's wedding, I got to hang out with her quite a bit, and it was a lot of fun. And she made me feel so comfortable, and she was chill. So I just get back out there, do as much as I can. They do their last dance, which is just them, like everyone else was herded out of there. And the band, but oh my gosh, the band was so good. And also at the end of the night, the band shout out to me. They were like, hey, we've been watching you. You're doing a great job. And I was like, I want to cry right now because I feel like it's been an awful day, but also great. But and I'm sure I met some famous people and I just have no idea because I was like trying to do my job.
Focused.
I don't really know, but it was a really cool experience. it was a lot. It was a lot. And then afterwards, of course, I I actually managed to get a photo from the photographer, like, a little better, at least in the poses that I needed for their portraits, because, like I said, what I had was terrible, and the end result turned out really good. I'm so happy with it. They were so excited. Lauren had it framed and hung up, like, in her bedroom right away, and I got to deliver it to her house, actually, which was cool. I met her 2 dogs and cat that she requested be in the painting, and yeah, it was amazing. It was a lot of fun. It was wild, but it was fun.
That's awesome. I loved hearing all of that. Yes. If a couple is looking to have a live painter at their wedding, what are maybe some questions they should ask before they sign a contract just to make sure it's the right fit for them?
Yeah, I think first they need to do their research and make sure they like the style of the painter, because I have heard, even in the Facebook group I'm in, someone recently posted about this couple who booked them, and then I don't know if it was before or after, like right after they did the painting, they're like, "Oh, we didn't realize you didn't do like realistic people. Like we wanted somebody to do like a realistic," and they were devastated. They're like, what do I do? Because I want them to be happy, but that's not my style." And so definitely for the couple, do research, make sure you like the style of the artist you're picking, because the artist is not going to change their style for what you want, even if it's the price range that you want. So
Yep.
the style is important. And then, like, what's important to you? Do you want to have a finished painting at the end of the night? Because there are people who do that. And there's a wide range of skill level for that too. Like if you don't mind a more abstract look, there's a lot of people who do that. And then there's a select few, I feel like elite people who can do like a very realistic portrait and almost completed scene by the end of the night. Or if you want something that's more of an heirloom and you know, it's not going to be finished, but it looks pretty good at the end of the night, then I'm your girl. Or if you just want someone who painted at Lauren Alaina's wedding at your weddings for you to say that, that's fine too. Definitely just research the artist, and of course, if it's within your budget, that's important. I feel like most artists probably offer payment plans. So if it maybe is a little more than you're expecting, just ask if they'll do a payment plan, if so it's more manageable for you, if that is a priority.
If someone wants to find you on social media, find your website, how do they do that?
I am just my name, Stephanie Hilen. Stephanie with a Phanie, Hilen, Hilen. I guess on Instagram, I am at Stephanie Hilen Art. So Instagram and my website, stephaniehighland.com, and that's where you would see more information about my pricing packages and send in a booking request.
On your website, there are also a fair amount of finished
Yes.
paintings on there so that they can see some of your work as well.
Yes, there's a gallery of finished paintings as inspiration, or just to, check out my style.
And then do you have Facebook at all?
I do, yes,
Okay.
but it's the same. I post the same Facebook and Instagram, so it's just, if you're more on Facebook, find me on Facebook. Otherwise, Instagram.
I have a lot of moms that listen to the podcast, and a lot of them are on Facebook. So I try to always include that as well. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me today. I loved hearing your story, and I love having your art in my house. I'm
I'm
so
honored.
excited for
Thank you
you
so
that you
much.
got to do Keeneland artwork. I know that that's huge, and getting to
Hmm.
check that off of your list. I am so thankful for what you do and for taking care of our couples here in Lexington.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
For more information about Simply Love Studio or to schedule your wedding consultation, go to simplylovestudio.com.